Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be completely different from all of the other videos that I usually do because today I'm not really talking about a celebrity or anything like that or any real drama, but I'm talking about something that actually means a lot to me, which is Pacific Islander culture and how we are being misrepresented in the media, especially during this month, which is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I just wanted to talk about it because I'm in fact half Pacific Islander. I am Samoan. And so I feel like our voices aren't being heard at all, especially this month and in the recent months. Our voices haven't been heard at all as far as this specific issue. And I feel like it needs to be heard because it's really affecting our community in negative ways, and I don't think that anyone really cares. And so since I haven't seen anyone talk about it really, or, just seen anything about it, I've decided to use the little platform that I have to just spread this and to make sure that people are educated about this topic. So before I do get into it, please go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you are new to this channel and you don't really know what I do, this isn't my usual content, but I do make content that's kind of socially aware, especially with the drama that I do talk about. It does have, more socially aware aspects to it. So if you like that, you might like my content, but I usually talk about just like random drama. But anyways, please subscribe if you aren't subscribed, and go ahead and turn on the post notifications so that you're notified of the next time that I post a video. And follow me on Twitter. My Twitter will be in the description below. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into the video. So the reason why I wanted to make this video is because of the recent conversations about Asian hate. Recently, there have been huge amounts of Asian hate crimes, a really large spike in the past year and a half because of COVID-19 and everything surrounding that. And people have just started to really attack the Asian community, which is wrong. And because of that, there has been a lot of conversation about the struggles that Asian people go through in this country. And these conversations are needed. These conversations are valid. And these conversations, if you aren't Asian, you need to listen because these experiences are valuable. They're valuable for understanding the Asian struggle in America and all over the world. They're super valuable. But something that's been happening is that people have been using the term AAPI. There's a group that's been using the term Stop AAPI Hate or something along those lines. Now, when you start to use the term AAPI, you now include Pacific Islander people, and that's where I come in. This conversation about the term AAPI is something that I haven't really thought about until now, because of the spike in Asian hate crimes. And when I first saw that people were using the term AAPI when referring to these hate crimes, I was genuinely confused. Because as a Pacific Islander, and Pacific Islanders are people of Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia, when I saw this term that people were using, AAPI hate, I started to do some research and I was trying to figure out, where has the PI hate been? As a Pacific Islander, I would know if my community was being attacked. However, Pacific Islanders are not receiving the hate that Asian Americans are receiving right now in America. It's just simply not happening. These hate crimes are not being targeted towards the Pacific Islander community. So using the term Stop AAPI or AAPI anything really in terms of these hate crimes, it's inappropriate because it's not true. PI is that we're not going through that. Our community is not going through that. And so when you start to use this term AAPI, you are now centering people in this conversation that do not need to be centered. It's inappropriate. Now suddenly we're talking about things that aren't happening. And now more people are included in the spotlight that should not be included, right? But then that started to make me think even more about the term AAPI and how honestly it's always been inappropriate for a plethora of different reasons. So the term AAPI was originated in the US Census in the 1980s, and it was just a way to group people together and I guess make it easier on the census to count Pacific Islanders and Asians together. And I think it's because of the fact that Pacific Islanders are such a small percentage of the population that I guess they felt that it was easier to just put our data together. But in 1997, it was actually separated and the data was disaggregated. Now, the problem is that we continuously use this term, or at least other people do. I've never used this term because I know that I'm not Asian. So I never understood why we were being grouped together. And other Pacific Islander activists have been calling for the same thing, for people to stop using the term AAPI in their language. It not only doesn't make sense just because of the fact that we are clearly not Asian. The Pacific Islands aren't even that close to Asia, and it just doesn't make any sense just realistically, but also because our data has been enveloped by the Asian community. I'm a college student right now, and at my college, when you look at the population of Pacific Islander students, it is also grouped with Asian students. So you see thousands and thousands of AAPI students, when in reality, as someone who is part of the Pacific Islander community, I don't even think that there are 100 of us on the entire campus. And my campus has, I think, 40,000 students. And this is including graduate students as well. So my campus is huge, and yet we definitely don't have like 200 Pacific Islander students. Yet, when you look at the data that they put out, they use the term AAPI, which includes it just envelopes the entire Pacific Islander community. So you think that there are more Pacific Islanders on campus than there actually are. And it just does a disservice to our community, because now we can be overlooked because it seems like we are in these spaces when we are in fact not. And then people use this data to then tell us that we're already funded, or funnel us through programs that aren't really created for us. You see all of these scholarships that are AAPI scholarships, but when you realize that it's only Asian winners, do you think that you'll have a chance as a Pacific Islander student? And this is just as far as academia is concerned. This is on so many different levels. When you look at our health statistics, you see that if they group AAPI people together, then you're not looking at all of the health conditions that are specific to Pacific Islanders, because it'll make a small percentage of the AAPI health concerns, and therefore it won't be paid attention. But in reality, it makes up a huge percentage of the Pacific Islander community health conditions and concerns, but nobody cares. And not to be controversial, but to speak the truth of the matter, it is historically a slap in the face to our ancestors to group us with Asian people, because quite frankly, we are the only racial group that is grouped with our colonizers. And why do I say this? Well, because a lot of Asian countries colonized the Pacific Islands. If you just take a look at Micronesia, after it was colonized by the Europeans, then other Asian countries started to come in, as well as specifically Japan. And I even see this in my own communities. There were a lot of times where like Asian countries would come in, and a lot of Asian people started to settle in the Pacific Islands. And this has also been a problem as far as Hawaiian culture is concerned. I mean, if you walk into a Hawaiian barbecue, are you going to see any Hawaiians? No, because we're being overrun and overlooked because a lot of Asian people come and populate these Pacific islands. And then, especially in Hawaii, you then see that Native Hawaiians are becoming more and more rare, and our culture is becoming more and more rare. I specifically remember, and this is just like a personal anecdote, but I specifically remember when I was in high school, we had these things called poly clubs, and they were Polynesian dance clubs. And every time that I would go in there, it would be a lot of girls who were Asian that were running these clubs, and then would pretend as if I didn't know Polynesian culture, even though I am Samoan. And they have this romanticized culture of what they have this romanticized idea of what they think Polynesian culture is, because they only know of Hawaiian culture, which they then mix in with Asian culture when it's two different separate things. But then when someone who is actually Polynesian comes in, they pretend like I don't know what I'm talking about, especially because I'm half black. So no one ever thinks, oh my gosh, she might be Samoan. But the fact that I'm Samoan, they don't care. They feel like that their idea and what they've made Polynesian culture to be, that's what it now is. And I've had experiences where a literal girl who was not Polynesian, I'm pretty sure she was Filipino, tried to tell me that a white girl that she knew more about Polynesian culture than I did as a Samoan person. So it runs deep. Because honestly, there has been a lot of appropriation that nobody talks about because it's a touchy subject. It's a touchy subject, and no one really wants to say anything, but I'm saying something because it's wrong. Because now we keep being grouped, and it's not right, and then people get a pass to appropriate our culture when it's not theirs. And then, if you look at the spotlight that AAPI people are getting, who's actually getting the spotlight? If you look at these playlists, how many PI stories are you seeing? How many PI artists are you seeing? How many PI actors and actresses are you seeing? Not many, if any, at all. If The Rock isn't the only one, then you found a gem. Even on Hulu, this is Netflix and Spotify, but even on Hulu, the only PI story that they had was The Rock's show. Why is it that we continuously become enveloped in this, let's celebrate AAPI heritage, but there's no celebration of PI heritage. There is no celebration of us. No one is asking us what struggles we have. No one is asking us what our story is. Nobody cares. If you look at the Spotify playlist that they have, you don't see any PI artists. None. I mean, they could have at least included Fiji, but they refuse because they don't care. And when they use the term AAPI, they do not mean Pacific Islanders. They mean Asian people, and that is it. So why are you even using the term? Why can't you just use the term Asian? Because that's what you mean. And in Hollywood, we have so many Pacifica talents. We have so many people that have something to offer. But if you keep using the term AAPI, then how many PI are you really going to hire? How many Pacific Islanders are you really going to give a spotlight? Even when they do make Pacific Islander stories, usually it's not really fully Pacific Islander. It's usually a lot of Asian people, because they can get away with that because now we're grouped together as one. And so they think that we're all one culture, when that is the most untrue statement ever. We're completely different. And so now Pacific Islander talents, Pacific Islander people are losing out on opportunities because they're getting beat out by Asian people. Even when you talk about internships and jobs, when you look for, we want to hire someone from the AAPI community, how much do you want to bet that they don't really mean Pacific Islanders? How much do you want to bet that there are going to be thousands of Asian applicants and maybe 10 Pacific Islander applicants? And if you group us together, then those Pacific Islander applicants do not have a chance. We are not a monolith. Pacific Islanders in and of themselves are not a monolith. There are so many different islands and communities in the Pacific Islands themselves that grouping us with an entire continent that's even bigger and has so many other cultures just makes no sense. And on top of that, our data, it shows something that's the furthest from the truth. One huge problem in the Pacific Islander community, is the fact that we have very low rates of education. But if you group us with Asian people who have very high rates of education, you wouldn't see that glaring problem in our community. When I look on my campus, I never see Pacific Islander people, ever. I mean, even as a Black person, I rarely see. As a Black person, there was one time I was in a class and there were 200 people. I was the only Black person, and I was so upset about that. But then you remember, oh, and I'm always the only Pacific Islander student in every single one of my classes. Every single one of my classes at this higher education institution, which is one of the biggest institutions in California, which has thousands and thousands of students, of grad students and undergraduate students. And you don't see, there might be 100 of us, maybe. There may be 100 of us. A lot of times when Pacific Islanders go to college, they only go for sports. And then they usually don't finish because they've made it to the NFL or wherever they're going to go. And so we don't have that many Pacific Islanders in these professional fields and these professional careers because we don't have that many college graduates, let alone masters or doctors. It just keeps getting slimmer and slimmer. We barely have any Pacific Islander professors or things of that nature. And so where are we getting this education of our own culture from? We tend to have to go and take classes in AAPI history or things of that nature. And our voices are still being silenced because there's so much to cover as far as Asian history that why would you cover Pacific Islander history the same way? Why would you even do that? It makes no sense. So that's just one aspect. That's a huge problem, but we have so many different issues that need to be addressed in the Pacific Islander community that are not being addressed because we keep getting grouped with Asian people. And I hope that people don't take this video the wrong way as, like racist toward Asian people, because that's the furthest thing from the truth. My heart goes out to the Asian community for what's been happening. I'll never sit up here and try to talk poorly of really any race. Even like a lot of times people think that it's okay to even, talk about white people and demean white people. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in racism, and therefore I don't believe in putting any race down. But we need to start having real conversations about what's happening to my people, because at the end of the day, I have to take up for my own. And when I see how just insane these problems are and how much could be fixed if we just did what we had to do and just changed our language and changed the way that we saw Pacific Islander people, so much would be different. But I don't want people to think that I'm trying to dogpile on the Asian community, because I am not. But since it is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, someone needs to say it. And I feel like if no one is going to say it, well, I guess I'll say it. I just want people to be educated. I just want people to learn and understand and listen, because we have been overrun for so long. We have been silenced for so long. No one's listened for so long that I just want somebody to listen, to learn, and to maybe change their language. And maybe this could start something where more people change their language and change the way that they see things. And maybe people in positions of power could start changing the way that they see things and do things. So yeah, I just really want people to understand where we're coming from and understand our struggle as Pacific Islander people. So that is it for this video. Please enjoy this obligatory picture of Aredna, a New Zealander Samoan singer who's amazing. Her voice is amazing. If you haven't listened to her, please go check her out. But please enjoy this obligatory picture of Aredna as I close out this video. But yeah, I just really wanted to bring awareness to this topic. I haven't gone nearly as deep in this video as this topic is. Like, this topic is super deep and just it permeates through a lot of different issues in the Pacific Islander community. But this was just more of like a surface level awareness type video. But I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up. Go ahead and comment down below. Just if you're a Pacific Islander, please go ahead and comment down below your experiences. And yeah, just comment down below. And please do subscribe to my channel, turn on the post notifications so that you are notified of the next time that I post a video, and follow me on Twitter. My Twitter will be in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!